Atif Mansoor commented, when it comes to dehydration, my concern is training during the fast. I prefer to train after iftar or taraweeh. Don't you get dehydrated training during the day? Atif, great question. In fact, it's such a great question that I decided to consult an actual MD doctor. So this is the conversation on the subject of dehydration with Dr. Omar. Here you go. Here with us, Omar, our MD, resident MD, also a member of the family. So, so I got a comment about dehydration, Ramadan fasting, and working out. So I wanted to ask you, we were talking about this before, you're pretty adamant about it, but right now you're kind of camera shy, but that's okay. So the question is, what is it, what is dehydration, right? Like, what does it mean? Are there levels to it, or whatever?
Jazakallah for inviting me on here.
This is not a religious talk, bro.
So dehydration is a relative, deficiency in water compared to salt, really medically speaking.
Sure.
So when, as a physician, if we see patients come in with dehydration, we check their salt levels, and if their salt is usually very high, out of proportion from the water in their body, obviously the best thing at the time to do is rehydrate them.
Now, you talk about salt in the body, and sometimes you hear about, all right, you want to be able to hydrate better, sprinkle a little bit of salt, some sugar into the water, but if you're high on salt in the body and you put salt in your water, is that a bad thing, or what's up?
So having things like Gatorade are generally very good, right? Because when we sweat, we actually excrete from our sweat a lot of different ions, like salt, like potassium, and chloride. Electrolytes, exactly. Okay? So a lot of times we do become relatively deficient in a lot of these things.
Sure.
Mostly water that's deficient, but the other things do need to be replenished. So things like Gatorade, which maybe Gatorade is not a good example, but it has a little bit too much sugar, but the idea is there. We have electrolytes in water, and it's mostly water, and you're replenishing that.
Now, in the context of fasting, if you're obviously not going to be drinking water, right? And so if somebody's talking about, I'm afraid of getting dehydrated while fasting and working out and sweating and all that, at what point, what does it really take to be in danger of the effects of dehydration in a fasted state?
That's a good question. The most important thing is, one, kind of knowing yourself, knowing for signs and symptoms of dehydration. Number one, you'll know that if you didn't rehydrate yourself properly, if suhoor and iftar, that's a problem number one. Okay. First thing is rehydrate yourself when you can.
Now, what is it appropriate? Like a cup of water, a gallon? I know, one thing that I would read, at least in general, non-fasting situation, consume your body weight in ounces. Right? And so, but not all at once, but in terms of spread throughout the day. But if we're talking in the sense of, in Ramadan, you're not drinking throughout the day, so how would you hit that number, if that?
Right. So people do their recommendations, like 8 glasses of water a day. You'll read and hear different things. To be very honest, that's a very specific question for your body, especially your overall weight in kilograms. Obviously, someone who's a lot smaller, drinks less water, they need less water. Sure. Someone who's way bigger needs a lot more water.
Okay.
So really, you could theoretically do blood tests to see if you're well hydrated or not. Yeah. I think the easiest index is if you just drink enough water to the point where your urine actually becomes relatively clear. Okay. That means your kidney is actually sparing excess water because it has enough.
Okay, so
that's an easier metric.
Okay, so essentially when you go to the bathroom and it's clearer,
exactly.
You drank too much.
Not necessarily too much. Your kidney can handle it. Okay. But it's you have enough water where your kidney is actually able to spare extra water.
Gotcha.
In that case.
So now, is there any risk of dehydration while fasting? What are the consequences?
I think regardless, there's one estimate I read the other day that said 30% Americans are regularly dehydrated. Okay. Right? Forget fasting or not fasting. Sure. Right? In general, a lot of things that we do, like eating especially too high of sugary, carbohydrates or those high-rich foods,
just dehydrate naturally.
So a lot of things can dehydrate you naturally, but you do have to balance it with water.
Sure.
So I think the most important thing is, one, keeping yourself regularly hydrated, because most people in general don't get enough water.
Okay.
The other thing is to kind of know your own body, understand that certain symptoms, if you're feeling like having blurry vision, if you're getting cramps a lot, if you're feeling very fatigued, very extra fatigued, extra weak, that can all put you at risk for dehydration. So those are, I should say, those are the signs or symptoms of dehydration. While fasting, you just have to be a little extra careful. But I think a lot of people, especially if they know their bodies and how they react to dehydration, they can kind of see it coming and take it a little easier.
So a simple marker for somebody who's afraid of the consequences of dehydration while fasting and working out would be like, all right, you know what? If I'm cramping, right? Maybe I need to just, ease off the gas a little bit.
Right.
Right?
Blurry vision,
Okay.
headaches, just feeling very dry mouth, very dry throat, or what's it called? Especially constipation.
Sure.
If you urinate and you have very dark urine,
Yeah.
that can also be a sign of dehydration as well.
Okay.
And like you said, having cramps as well.
Gotcha. So that's it, guys. We got the doctor in the house, kind of giving us some advice. If you have any questions, put them in the comment below. I'll see you soon.